Welcome to the Greening Casino training series produced by Peaks to Prairies and the Western Sustainability and Pollution Prevention Network. In this series, we hear from casino professionals on how to make green by going green. You'll want to watch all 10. In this video, we'll explore how casinos can win big by reducing their food waste.
What's the reason why waste is happening? And there tend to be a few drivers. The first is we don't want to run out of food. We know that we don't want to disappoint a customer and we don't want to lose the revenue. So the antidote is we make a little extra so that we don't run out. And often that leads to waste. Secondly, we know that there's no option but to serve safe food. We're simply not going to take any shortcuts, nor should we. Safe food is critical. So what we do is we build a safety margin around the food, and then we build another margin around that, and then another margin around that. And we tend to be so conservative that we build a huge set of margins of error. And so in many cases, we throw away food that is safe just because we're concerned that there might be some risk. And we see this a lot, particularly in grocery, with expiration dates on food that's perfectly safe and healthy, but it's just got a date on it. So that's the thing that can lead to some food waste. We know that merchandising drives customer satisfaction and sales. We want things to look beautiful and bountiful, but that comes with a cost. And the cost is that we put a lot out, and often that becomes waste. So, and this is also true for the entrees. If we're serving plated meals, we often want those meals to be really full and big on the plate, and so we put bigger portions out than we might need because we want to impress people. So that's a waste driver. Labor cost is another. We know that labor is always an issue. It's one of the top costs we manage. And so some people have looked at how can we minimize labor by maybe making larger batches, not having to have as many cooks on duty for as many hours. Of course, what happens is when we build large batches, they inevitably lead to waste, because one of the single sort of core tenets of lean production is single piece production, that you don't want to build big batches because inherently you're going to end up mismatching the batch with the market demand. So labor sometimes, labor controls sometimes lead us to waste. And then of course we want convenient service and wide choice and broad availability, so we have lots of things on our menus. So I would suggest to you that all of these things are independent drivers, and we've paid for each one of these priorities by wasting a little more. And that has, over time, accumulated into a big problem. So if you think of this like a balloon, where you're pushing on all sides of the balloon, and the only side you're not pushing on is waste, it kind of pops out and it inherits the problem. So if we want to deal with fixing waste, we want to source, reduce, and prevent food waste, we have to acknowledge that these levers exist, and we have to be prepared to bring and restore some balance to the system. What can we do to put waste on the list? So the first thing we have to do is we have to recognize that any solution we bring needs to begin with culture rather than strategy. Kitchen culture is going to eat strategy for lunch. So we have got to create a culture that's ready to reduce waste. And the way we do that is we have to acknowledge some stigmas. The first is that many culinary professionals think waste is a sign of negligence. They think that if they acknowledge they have waste, they're basically saying they're doing a poor job. And that's just not true. Every food service operation has waste. The big difference is the ones that talk about it openly are the ones that solve it. So we have got to remove the stigma and get people focused on the fact that it's not an individual performance matter. This is something everyone struggles with. The second thing that we will hear sometimes from people is that our operation has very little food waste. And I run into that occasionally. I've got lots of stories of people kind of folding their arms and telling me, yeah, we don't have much waste here. And I used to kind of let that slide and say, well, gosh, good job. And now I've learned to ask just exactly how much waste do you have? Because the truth is that in most cases they can't answer that question, and they don't really know how much waste they have. They're just hoping that the problem isn't a big one. So if we want to do a culture reset, we have to go positive, and we have to recognize that addressing food waste is a good thing, even while the food waste itself is a bad thing. And we want to embrace data. We want to find information that's going to help guide us on this journey. The next thing that we need to do is we need to be inclusive in our culture, and we need to be focused. So the truth is that managers can do the best job in the world of planning the work, but even the most perfect production plan will never get executed perfectly, because everyone on the team brings their own judgment and decision making to the table. And someone will remember, gosh, I remember 3 years ago when I got yelled at for running out of bacon. So I'm going to always make a little extra, and that goes through people's minds. And so these things cause us to deviate from forecasts, even really good, carefully planned forecasts. So we've got to be inclusive and get our frontline teams to be the ones who are helping to prevent and minimize waste. This is not something that can be done from an office. Now, the way that we do that is we engage those teams by setting goals. And goals should be very specific, very focused around specific items that we want to reduce waste around. Just want to emphasize that an anti-waste culture is going to be open, transparent, and positive. It's going to be driven by data. It's going to be inclusive of everyone on the team, and it's going to be very focused and use goals to keep people on task. The answer that I have found to be the most significant impact on waste prevention is measurement. I'll say that again. The single most important impact on waste prevention, food waste prevention, is measurement. This is a casino example, the MGM Grand, where they're saving almost $8,000 a month due to food costs due to tracking food waste, which they reduced their food waste by 80%. Another college that, in their case, saved about $300,000, 60% reduction. So the point here is there is a lot of leverage in tracking.